Hello and welcome to another episode of Photo Book Friday, the show where I talk about photo books and my growing collection. Play the jingle.
It's not Monday, it's not Tuesday, it's not Wednesday or Thursday. It's Photo Book Friday. It's Photo Book Friday. It's Photo Book Friday.
How's everyone doing? It's over 50 here in New York City, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I've been out shooting the last couple days and it's been amazing. Some updates, I'm almost done shooting my expired roll of Superior 400. I will shortly let you guys see the results of that. Also, I got some film back from the lab. I'm currently scanning it as we speak. Here are the results right now. Well, let's get into the main event. Today we're gonna be talking about Every Picture Tells a Story by Terry O Neill. This book, published in 2016, was only a few years before Terry's death in 2019. Terry was a photographer best known for taking photos of celebrities and the well-to-do. He got to take photos of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, famous actors, politicians, Nelson Mandela. He seems to have taken photos of every major person of the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. I actually first learned about Terry in the documentary about Faye Dunaway. Faye and Terry O Neill were married for a short period of time, and in that time period, he took probably one of the most famous photos of Faye Dunaway in her history. Reading a little bit about his backstory, I learned that Terry kind of fell into photography. Terry was an on-site photographer for Heathrow Airport. Terry was picked up by a London-based tabloid newspaper. For his first assignment, Terry was tasked with taking a photo of the most legendary actor of their time, Laurence Olivier. Unlike previous photo books that I've talked about on this channel, this one is more of a retrospective book. The other books were curated by the photographers. They have a certain viewpoint, they have a certain curation that only the photographer as an artist could capture. Since Terry was more of a publication photographer, it's gathered a little bit differently. His photos are obviously mostly staged with a few candid spread throughout. One thing I really like that they did in this book is they show the outtakes, the photos that they didn't choose. I like when you get to see how a photographer was able to land on the image that they ended up going with. In each section, there's an interview with Terry talking about the photographic session that he had with these people. I think in this time frame too, you have to be a big personality yourself to be able to capture a lot of these celebrities. I really want to highlight some of my favorite celebrity stories from this book. Terry was given a lot of access to film sets and he was able to capture actors in between takes. And I think that he was really able to capture a lot of moments that you wouldn't normally see from a behind the scenes photographer. Since he's not hired by the film company, he's able to get away with kind of making them look how they were. There's this great, incredible shot of Dustin Hoffman lounging on a couch. We're not sure if it's before a take or after. I love to not only see Dustin Hoffman, but the behind the scenes of this set as well. There's a lot of stories that are being told here that I bet Terry isn't even realizing. Another in this book is this section about Michael Caine where he talks about how him and Michael were very close friends. He got to photograph him on a lot of movie sets. And there's these amazing photos, like a collage of Michael Caine asleep on set. They said in between takes, you could always catch him nodding off somewhere on the set. Another story in here is about the rock star Alice Cooper. In the book, Terry talks about going to Alice's house, how as an English person, he was not used to the fact that people had pools in their backyard. He got a spark of creativity and wanted to stage the photos in the pool. In the book, he talks about how they really had no idea for what the photo was going to be, but he worked with Alice to come up with a concept. At the time, the movie Jaws had come out, and Alice was a big fan of both the book and the movie. In some weird coincidence, Alice's wife had an inflatable cutout of a shark. The photo was staged in a way where Alice would be in a float and he would be pursued by a shark. I love in the photo that you can see someone diving with the inflatable shark. In the writing is said that this is Alice Cooper's wife using the inflatable shark. I love how quirky the photo is, and it shows a little bit of Alice Cooper's personality aside from his rock star mentality. Another thing about this section is that Terry talks about how nothing was really planned. He was organically finding the photo with the subject. It allows your subject to feel more comfortable and feel like they're the author of their own image as well. I was really fascinated by that. He has this great quote: "Today, this wouldn't happen. These setup shots were spur of the moment and came about by luck and conversation, and seeing what was around us and what we could use as props. Today, a shoot this specific would be extensive and would have involved 100 PR reps and assistants, and everything would have been planned well in advance and approved by managers and managers and managers of managers. I feel sorry for photographers today. I really believe they've lost a sense of freedom and creativity. We were working during the last days of freedom. Freedom to improvise, experiment, and to have fun." I also wanted to talk about the section about Faye Dunaway. This was the photo that initially drew me to Terry O Neill, to wanting to know more about how this photo was captured. This photo was actually taken before Terry and Faye had even started dating or were married. As the legend goes, Terry convinced Faye to meet him by the pool at the Beverly Hills Hotel as early as possible the morning after the Academy Awards. True to her word, she appeared on time at the break of dawn, having had barely a minute's sleep. Terry charmed the staff to let them use the pool for an hour, and while Terry scattered this morning's papers at her feet, all trumpeting her success, Faye slunk in the chair and placed her golden statue on the table, and with a few snaps, an iconic image was born. Terry talks about how for every photo, you know there's likely to be at least a dozen other shots that you don't get to see. This is the decisive moment, the one shot that captures the feeling. I love this photograph. I feel like this photo tells a million different stories. It's so many ways to interpret it. Terry might not have thought of himself as a high concept or even an artistic photographer, but I think that this photo tells many stories. This is the most famous photo of Faye Dunaway, and I think it captures so much of this time period. There's so much that could be said about fame. Once you've achieved the goal that you strove so hard, you're on top of the mountain. What now? What other mountains are left to climb? Was she searching for something, and now that she had it, was it unfulfilling? There's so many stories that this photo creates. I absolutely love it. There's another section in here photographing actor David Hemmings. David Hemmings was in the famous movie Blow Up. The movie follows a fashion photographer who accidentally takes a photo of a murder and how his life unravels to that point. Even though the movie is probably not in the popular culture now, how most people think of fashion photographers is embedded in this character and in this movie. The classic fashion photographer, as you would see in Austin Powers or Zoolander, is cemented from the movie Blow Up. And David Hemmings was a combination of characters, but admittedly used Terry as a reference for his character as well. In the book, Terry talks about his positive relationships with a lot of celebrities. That being said, there's an exception with Steve McQueen. This is what Terry says about Steve McQueen. "In my career, I've been lucky. I've said that throughout this book, but it's honest to God the truth. I was given the opportunity not only to take photos of some of the best musicians, actors, and politicians, but also they liked me enough to talk to me afterwards. And in some cases, we became more than a photographer's subject. We became friends. I was with Sinatra off camera many times, and I would go drinking with the Beatles and the Stones. In 1962, before anyone ever thought about having a #1 hit was even possible, I married a Hollywood icon. I went to their homes, and because they trusted me, I never betrayed their trust. I would never say anything really negative about anyone, except in the case of Steve McQueen. He's a great actor, there's no doubt, and maybe I just caught him at a wrong time. I had arranged to do a photo shoot with McQueen at his office in Hollywood. I don't remember who needed the photos or what he was promoting, but I turned up at the building, met the PA or publicist, and in we went. As soon as we opened the door to his office, I could just tell this was not going to go well. Instinct kicked in, and before he could even shout to get out, I started snapping. Maybe I should have waited a beat, but I didn't. Apparently he didn't know I was going to come by that day. Something got mixed up in communication, and sure enough, he did start yelling to get out, get out, get out. By that time, I was just taking photos of anything I could get in focus. I had a lot of color film on me, so I was trying to zoom in on his hands, whatever I saw through the lens. I left in a hurry and I didn't get too many shots. And no, I never went back to his office. The most amazing thing about this photo shoot with Steve McQueen, that although he was asked to leave, Steve McQueen didn't really seem like he wanted his photo taken. The photos that Terry was able to capture are so cool. You can't even tell that this is someone that is yelling at you to get out. Since Terry was able to focus on the eyes, ears, the collage that was created of Steve McQueen tells more about who he is as a person than maybe a portrait shot would. These tiny details of eyes, ears, hands, you would have thought that Terry had staged a lot of this work and it wasn't just something he was firing off at will. Another section is talking about the Rolling Stones. Terry talks about how since he was the same age as the Rolling Stones when they were first coming up, he was really able to kind of hang out with them, be candid, and capture them in moments that other photographers weren't able to capture. I love this photo of Brian Jones, one of the founding members of the Rolling Stones, who tragically died of drowning in the late 60s. It's a shot of him after just finishing his meal at a diner. It's really personal. It feels like it was captured by someone who knew Brian pretty well. The way that Terry was able to capture bands like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles at this time was not really being done. It was showing them as people before they were musicians or celebrities, how they existed on their daily lives. And it seems like Terry just genuinely hung out with them. This is an amazing shot of Brian Jones that I had never seen before. I'm a huge Rolling Stones fan, so seeing a lot of early Rolling Stones photography gets me really pumped. Another section is about taking a photo of Sharon Tate, the actress who was famously killed by the Manson family. Terry was actually not on assignment to take a photo of Sharon. They were friends, and he just decided to stage something. This is what he says. As a photographer, if I'm not there specifically on assignment, I'm trying to capture something else. Instead of telling the story of what they are wearing or what film or record they are promoting, I'm just taking photos because I love taking photos. I love how candid this photo is of Sharon. I think that you could tell that she really trusted Terry. I think that's a story of a lot of this book. A lot of these people trusted Terry, and it was reflected in how he was able to capture them. There are too many stories to count in this book. These are some of my favorites. I might return to this book just because there's so many interesting stories about Terry working with a lot of these people. This book really got me inspired to take more portraits of people. I think I'm gonna make that a priority this year to get back into the flow of taking staged portraits of friends, of colleagues, of work professionals. I think it's a skill that as photographers we should all have. You know, a lot of fine arts photographers would stray away from work like Terry, but I think there's lessons to be learned from just about any medium of photography. I think that the biggest takeaway was trust. When you are taking photos of a subject, they have to trust that you have their best interest, that what you're capturing is only to make them look good. And that being said, there's plenty of photos that are capturing the ugliness in human behavior. And that's a whole separate thing. But in these publicity photos, it's really capturing the essence of who they are. If people interpret it as being something bad or grotesque, it really should be a reflection of who that person is. It should be a true representation of the celebrity, of the musician, of the politician. I think that Terry was able to capture a time in photography before hyper-staged studio portraits. A lot of these are really simply designed portrait. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this work. I'd love to hear about your own portrait work or something that you're working towards. Let me know. And as always, I'll catch you on another episode of Photo Book Friday. Cheers.